I'm pretty sure you all watched the movie The Matrix, and you remember the character of Mr. Anderson, portrayed by Keanu Reeves. Sometimes I feel like him because I kinda lead a double life. By day, I'm a project manager at a respectable software company, while by night, I attend to dark clubs and I get close and have close encounters with stranger women, and then I am addicted. Okay, bear with me and I will explain the full story. 7 years ago, I was living in Italy, in my hometown by the sea. I thought I had already achieved many of the things I wanted in life. I had my own sailboat, we raced regattas, and I had a girlfriend, and I had my own house. I was my own boss. I had a web agency, and I had family clothes, and I was happy not. Okay, it all started when I was a child because, I was one of 3 sons in a very strict family, and they raised us to be very competitive. I had a twin brother with our parents split us at the primary school because they don't want us to establish an interdependence. They wanted us to compete, to be the best, and to be genuinely independent, and so they split us. And at school, we needed to be the best, simply the best of the school, not of the class. So, okay, I was the best of the school. I was top of my school. At primary, secondary school, probably high school, and I didn't have friends. I wasn't allowed even to invite friends at my place. They weren't friends or schoolmates. They were just people to beat. Not just to beat, to crush, okay? That was my childhood. I was completely focused on achieving what my parents needed to have their love in change. So we were 3 little beings, and we were fighting. We were bullying each other. And we were judged over, our performances at school, at sports, but we were forbidden any kind of expression. We didn't express our emotions. We never talked about anything that wasn't very material. When I was in high school, I wanted to talk about philosophy, art, music. Any of my attempts failed miserably. And even when I fell in love for the first time, when I was 18, and I was writing poetry to this girl. I loved her because it was a schoolmate. She was a schoolmate, and I portrayed her, and I drew these portraits, and so I told my mother I was in love. Oh no, that girl, she's not for you because she's too short. And I was dead inside. Tried to establish at university contact with her, but I couldn't really have my parents happy for any reason. And as a student at university, I tried to be the best, to do the best as I could, and I got my grade as an engineer, and then I had the first job, and my parents weren't happy even with the girl that I introduced to them after having my first job, and so I left her. I broke her heart, and that's how I found myself in a situation back in my hometown where I apparently had it all, but I was very miserable inside because I realized that my life wasn't what I wanted for me. I just fulfilled my parents' dream, or I was trying to cope with the social pressure. I wasn't married, and I hadn't children. I didn't want children at the time, and society was judging me, Now, it is in this context that I needed to escape from that misery and just to find something to connect with my emotions. So one day I found this advertisement of tango classes for beginners, and I tried the school because I told myself, okay, I have been a student for so many years, it would be for me easy to attend a school. But that was for my ego. It was challenged by the fact that tango is a very technical dancing and requires years to be mastered. But the real me wanted to be free, to meet people, to meet women, to connect with a community of dancers, to express himself. So I wanted to break out of that cage. And I went to school. The first class, okay, didn't give me any feeling. It was very cold, very technical. And I tried the second school, and it was pretty much the same. And then, when I was a little discouraged, I tried a third school, and I found a thriving community of tango dancers, very welcoming, very friendly, and the teachers were fantastic, amazing. They reminded me my primary school teacher, who I loved very much. And then I started dancing tango. And I remember this first class where we had to embrace between strangers. It felt so awkward to me. I didn't really embrace anyone in life before, because in my family, any expression of affection or embracing or saying I love you was completely forbidden. And it was seen as weak, not masculine enough. And so just embracing that people felt weird to me. I remember I blushed the first time a lady touched me on my chest, and then I mechanically hugged her, but I didn't really knew what embrace was in tango. But I started to feel something, some connection, like, okay, I'm like them because we are embracing each other. We are in the same situation here, finding to progress in tango, to move the first step. So, like my ego was shattered for the first time. My very big ego. And it was my ego that needed to cope with another step in the tango journey that was walking. Now, a basic feature of tango is that you need to walk using a special technique. Already standing up in tango requires technique. But walking, it needs coordination in the couple of dancers. And okay, I remember that after 2 months just of practicing walking, I was still so awkward, and my level of walking was years light from the teacher's one. So I thought, okay, this is very difficult. Am I doing the right thing? My ego was like scared because it was judging myself. I couldn't afford another failure in life. But I felt so bad for the other part of me who wanted really to break free, to express himself, to find love, to find connection, intimate connection. And I accepted my vulnerability and to go on with that journey. Okay, now the moment that scares tango dancer the most is when they go for the first time at the milonga. Milonga is the dancing hall where tango events are held, and I was super scared because you have all the eyes on you if you commit any mistake. If something goes wrong, like you bump into another couple, and you can potentially be dangerous. You can trip and fall over the lady, and you can also hurt people by marking movement to the lady that will, with her heels, cut people. And so this is potentially very scary for any tango dancer. I remember the first time I needed to go to milonga, and that came after years of tango, because my teacher here in Valencia told me, you won't go to milonga before mastering something. But it was so hard to me to get connected with the ladies. Okay, I was dancing somehow, but it was so mechanically. I felt the pressure still, the judgment of people on me. I couldn't really get into tango. Then I realized that listening to the tango music, I was being really addicted to the feeling, these songs, beautiful songs, full of passion, melancholy, really entered my soul. And that helped me to go on, even if I already was unsure if tango would provide what I was looking for. There was a moment last year that changed my tango forever. I was invited to a milonga organized by a small school here in Valencia, and I remember that after midnight we were just 10 people, and there were 3 couples dancing, and in the same dance floor there was a woman, an elderly woman that looked very fragile, dancing alone. I was looking at her, and I remember I asked the guy who was there, and he told me that her name was Anna, and she had osteoporosis, a problem that prevented her from doing this dissociation movement needed in tango. And okay, I felt her so concentrated, so into the music, so serene, but alone. She really wasn't caring about the judgment of the others. But I was tender in my heart, so I approached to her and offered her to dance with me. And even if we didn't met before, she trusted me, and then we started dancing. And I remember that was one of the most fantastic, beautiful dancing I had. Because, okay, she was dancing with her eyes closed, but her arm opened, and her steps were so light and so into the music, and she was really enjoying all that. And it was the moment when I understood, something clicked in my mind. I need to not care about judgment, just enjoy my life, just connect with my feeling, and live my life and navigate into the matrix with the new superpower that tango gave me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rafa. Good job.